Hello, my name's Eric. I am a wedding photographer. That's why I'm making a video about wedding photography gear. I used to shoot 30 plus weddings a year. I no longer do that, but this conversation was much more important to me at that time with the amount of volume I was shooting regarding weddings. Now I only shoot about 5 or 6 a year. And if you couldn't tell, digitally at least, I'm gonna speak from the perspective of being a Canon photographer. I don't have any other perspective of shooting with any other brand, so I'm sorry if you shoot with another brand or you're looking to shoot with another brand, but I'm hopeful that a video like this can be translated into any other brand regarding lenses and body types and just kind of philosophy of how I shoot as well and how I use the gear philosophically. We got a bunch of stuff, so let's talk about it. First up, my main workhorse, the Canon R5. I've had this camera for about 4 years now. I got it in 2020 when it first came out, and it's been my photography workhorse. It's an incredible piece of gear. It is 45 megapixels and a full frame sensor. It has dual pixel autofocus and multiple autofocus modes. The face tracking is incredible. Crazy good resolution, pretty good low light performance. I'm very happy with this camera. I've had zero issues with it, honestly. Being a filmmaker as well, it's a good B or C cam. We used it for a lot of shots in the documentary we shot over the past 2.5 years. So yeah, can't say enough good things about this camera. It's currently going for $3,000 new on B&H at the time of recording this. Some other things to notice in it is that it has dual card slots. It is a CF Express card and an SD card. You have to get fast enough cards to make sure that it's buffering in time for the 45 megapixel photos you're taking on this camera, or else it's just gonna be loading, and that's a problem when you're shooting a wedding. It has up to 20 frames per second on the electronic shutter and 12 frames per second on the mechanical shutter. More than enough than you would need for wedding photography. I don't really see a scenario where you ever need to shoot more than 12 or even 20 frames in one instant in succession. Succession. Another reason why this mirrorless camera is so powerful now are the RF lenses that I use with it. I'll be getting to those in just a second, but the combination of using RF glass, Canon's new new lenses for these systems is second to none. You can adapt EF lenses, their old lens system, into this camera, into their mirrorless system, but it's definitely not as quick on the autofocus front, and it's not as sharp. Sometimes you might not want to go so sharp, so I don't know, I still have some EF glass to soften it up a bit. I think that's enough about the R5. My B camera, the Canon R5C. This is almost exactly the same photo camera on paper, spec-wise. It's currently going for $3,500 on B&H at the time of recording this video. And like I said, it's really the exact same specs on paper regarding photo. You have the 45 megapixel sensor, but it's just more robust in video and the mechanisms you have for video. I'm not gonna dive into that a whole lot in this video, just the fact that it has cinema camera menus, it's full frame, different options like recording in RAW for video, which you can do on the R5, but this one has the ability to not overheat, which is, yeah, that's one of the criticisms of the R5. In regards to video, I know sometimes people have said they've had issues with overheating with photo, but with this vent system and the side of the R5C, that's really never an issue. I have not had this camera overheat on me at all yet. I have noticed that the autofocus lags a little bit more in this camera than it does the R5 original Mark 1, but nothing that's going to make me want to not use it as a B camera. This camera was given to me for a job I did with Canon in a short film I made with them, but it has been an incredible workhorse since I gave away my R6 in a giveaway with my course, The Classroom, and this turned into my B camera, and I've been loving it as the B camera. But I'm really only shooting 15 to 20% of a wedding day on my B camera. I'm almost exclusively shooting all of it on the R5. Before the announcement of the R5 Mark II, I would have recommended this as the Canon hybrid camera. If you wanted to shoot photo and video, this would probably be the workhorse you'd want to use. But it is missing C-Log 2 on the video side, which is my favorite log curve in video with Canon, and that was put into the R5 Mark II. So my recommendation is if you are looking into upgrading into the Canon system, if you're on the 5D Mark IV still, or you have an R6 and you want to get up to the R5 range, The R5 Mark II is going to be a necessary upgrade. It's just going to be the thing that will give you the ability to do that photo and video to the best of your ability. These cameras will be cheaper now in the used market, but because of that log setting, because of the capabilities of what the R5 II does now, that's what I would recommend if you're going to make that investment up. If you're currently shooting like in my position with the R5 or R5C, it doesn't feel like the R5 Mark II is necessary for an upgrade at this point. And with that R5 Mark II announcement, they also released the R1 for pre-order, and unless you're shooting the Olympics, track and field, football, any crazy fast sport, NASCAR, you don't need it. It's so overkill for a wedding. It's completely unnecessary. I would not recommend getting that camera if you are trying to shoot weddings with a mirrorless camera. Now, if you're in the Canon system and you're looking for something on a budget, maybe you are still at like a EOS R or an R50 and you want to upgrade to something full frame, the R6 Mark I is a steal right now. I looked it up recently and you can find them used. One of my favorite used camera websites is mpb.com. You can find them used for around $1,500 US, which is pretty incredible. The difference is that it has a lower megapixel count on the sensor, but that means that it does better in low light. The original R6 is a 20.1 megapixel sensor. Again, it's more than enough for shooting weddings and printing things large, but you do have twice to almost 2.5 times the resolution in the R5. So there's something to be said there. The fact that I can zoom in 2 times into my image with the R5 is incredible in post, and that's still an acceptable image. But the low light capabilities in something like an R6 with a lower megapixel count is incredible for low light situations like receptions. If you don't have lighting, you're not bringing lighting, that could be something that's really advantageous for you if you're just starting out. But the difference is that now they have the R6 Mark II, which currently brand new on B&H is $2,300 USD, 24.2 megapixel sensor. So definitely an upgrade there. But then you have a lot more capabilities within that camera as far as video settings if you want to use it as hybrid camera, but your autofocus is going to be way better, especially with dual pixel AF and eye tracking, face tracking, all that good stuff. So something to be considered. The difference is about $700. $800. $800. New, used. You do your research. But if you've been shooting for a while and you want to make that upgrade, you're still in that R6 5D4 range, I would highly recommend looking into the R5 Mark II. It seems to be like the best option now and foolproof for the next 4 to 8 years. R5 as well, especially if you're not doing video, R5. That's what's interesting about cameras these days right now. It just feels like they're plateauing. We've been talking about this a lot on our podcast, Rally Caps. It just feels like the camera bodies aren't doing much more. And that's cool. I mean, the fact that you could buy a camera like the R5 4 years ago and it still holds up as one of the best cameras on the market and doing what we do as wedding photographers today is pretty awesome. Lenses. I have 3 RF lenses, but I never used the third one. It's not even on the table. That's the 24 to 105 f4. I got that with the R5C. I've only used it for like in-studio stuff or podcasting. I'm never really interested in a lens that's f4. This is my workhorse and what I shoot on my R5 A cam. Most of the time, 80% of the day is shot really on this lens now. It is the RF50 f1.2 and it is insane. It's so fast, and autofocus opens up to 1.2 on that 45 megapixel sensor. It is just a dream to work with. And like I said, it's the majority of the images that I make these days. Other than that, in years past, I really championed having prime lenses only, fixed lenses with no zooming. And that was because they had great low light performance. You get incredible bokeh in the background, separation with the subject, all vibey, and incredible low light performance because you can open the lens all the way wide. And with prime lenses, it really forces you to move your body more instead of staying in one place. But since I started using the C70 and the cinema camera front and have the RF mount on that cinema camera, my workhorse on the video side is the 15 to 35 f2.8, the RF version. And since it's been the workhorse on the video side, I gave it a try on the photo side as well as soon as I started using it 3 years ago, and I am hooked on it. If I'm shooting a 35 prime that goes down to 1.4, I really never feel like I need that lens, that wide lens, to be wide open like that. because so often when I shoot a 35 wide open or a 24 wide open, it tends to be incredibly soft, or I get a lot of chromatic aberration on the edges of my subject. And with this lens, I never get that actually. And it gives me the ability to go all the way wide for room shots, all the way to 15. I rarely shoot it that wide, maybe 18 or 20 mil, all the way down to 35 for portraits and photojournalistic stuff. So the versatility of this lens in the photojournalistic realm paired with the R5C is incredible. And that setup, those two bodies and these two lenses are what I shoot 95% of the time at a wedding now. I do usually carry these two extra lenses in the bag so that I have different options. The ride or die that I always have throughout the years is my 45 mil tilt shift. And if you're unfamiliar with what a tilt shift is, it kind of distorts reality by taking the vertical plane of focus and tilting it either towards the camera or away from the camera to give this blurred effect on top and bottom of the image. So it's a really vibey, kind of fun, interesting thing to play with. Something if I have extra time or if I want to make things look interesting or play with double exposures, I love using this lens as just something to elicit a lot of creativity in the work that I do. But since it's an EF mount lens, I have to do the RF to EF mount adapter onto the camera bodies, the mirrorless ones that I have now. So if I forget that, I can't use this lens. And then I'll also bring along my EF 135 because if I'm shooting like a Catholic ceremony where there's a huge long aisle or I need a ton of reach with a lens, I will bust out the 135. And if I put this on the R5 and a 45 megapixel sensor, I can crop into even what would look like a 200 mil lens, which is more than enough reach, but I rarely ever go to grab this. The 50 mil is usually more than enough on that sensor because I can crop into 85, 100 mil equivalent if I have to. But most of the time I'm able to move my body in a way to get to the places I need and not have to need that much of a reach. If I'm feeling spicy, I'll pull these guys out. These are the Tiffin Pro Mist 1/8 filters. Anything stronger than 1/8, like 1/4 or 1/2, is a bit too intense for me. This just creates more of a dreamy sort of look without it being too intense, without it looking like glamour shots from the 80s. It really helps with highlight roll off and gives this just sort of dreamy effect and makes the portraits a bit softer. It's definitely a look, so I'm not always inclined to use it. It needs to be in the right setting with the right clients. But again, similar to the tilt shift, it's something that just elicits more creativity or gives that little extra spice or sauce to your work that might take the digital edge off a little bit, if you will. Now, a lot of the day, I'll actually carry my flash with me on the R5C with the 15 to 35 in case I need extra light. And this has been my ride or die speed light for years now, probably 5 years. It's the 600EX RT, and it's virtually everything I need in a flash. If I need to put the white card up to push flash forward without it being direct, I can do that. It has a swivel head so I can bounce it over my shoulder if I need to into a white ceiling or white wall or whatever to spread the light out more. And then I use it for direct flash as well on the dance floor, or I'll drag the shutter, or I'll get that really fun, vibey, direct flash kind of look. I've been doing that for portraits now too. It feels like that editorial style is coming back in wedding photography, which is super fun. Using this in the middle of the day on a wide angle lens is pretty awesome, as a couple's walking towards me or, wedding party kind of hanging out on the bus or whatever the case is, kind of give that editorial magazine sort of vibe. It's really fun, but incredibly useful if you find yourself in a really dark situation, need to bounce some flash off the ceiling, or go with that editorial direct flash in those situations too. For fun, things that are just kind of extra that I don't really charge my clients for. If they want a lot of it, I'll charge for it. And that's really revolving around film. So I've said this in years past, it's my ride or die, it's such a fun thing. It's the Fuji Instax Wide, and I will either hand this off to my second shooter or carry this in my side bag, which I'll get to in a second. Throughout the day, I will take these instant photos, or I'll have my second shooter or assistant take these film photos. They're instant, so this is a really bad one, it's dark, but we'll do like anywhere from 10 to 20 of these images and then drop them on the table at dinner with the couple, and they usually lose their minds. Incredible way to serve your clients and kind of give them like just that sneak peek right away that they could take home that night and have the next morning. A lot of times they'll post it on Instagram the next morning on their story, tag me, super fun. Here I have the Leica M6. I've owned this camera for almost 8 years now, and I have the Clever Supply short strap with it. So it's not Joe Greer short strap, but he also has his short strap with Clever Supply. And that's been really cool to see them partner in that way. He's got a film sleeve now too, and a short strap, a wrist strap. Recently, I got the SF20, which is the direct flash, and I just got these scans back. Very fun vibes, again, editorial, but on film. I just got this CLA'd finally. If you've been following for years, this thing has needed work for so long, and I finally sent it in to YYE on the East Coast. Got it serviced, put 10 rolls through it, and I'm thrilled to have it back in the lineup. I have the Voigtlander 35 Nocton on here, and it opens up to 1.4, but it's really vignette at 1.4, so I don't like to really shoot it at 1.4. Try to keep it at like 2 or more closed than 2. But typically we'll be rocking Portra 400, you know, pretty standard film stock in this, or Portra 800. If I'm feeling spicy, I might include some Cinestill 800T. Really fun vibes at night with red blooms and all sorts of funky looking colors and vibes. Been loving shooting this camera in my personal life again, but love bringing it to weddings and portrait sessions, engagement sessions as well, to give a little bit of extra flair to the clients. They seem to love it as well. And I've been getting all my scans done at Nice Film Lab. They have a club called the Nice Film Club. It's a standard fee for the year, but you get perks with 10 free rolls in the beginning and then discounted on all of your development and free shipping. So been going with them and loving that. Get TIFF files that are super high resolution, and I'll edit those in post, add some contrast and color and clarity, things that I need to just get them exactly how I want them instead of getting blown out bad JPEGs. It's so frustrating to get your film photography back and they're not utilizing the dynamic range of the film. Nothing more frustrating. And this one I don't bring super often to weddings now unless the client asks for it. We're like going for portfolio stuff. And it's the Mia 645 AF, and it is medium format. It is a 645 camera. So you get 12 shots. Why am I 16 shots on 645. Why don't I just get that number wrong?
16.
16.
6 by 6 is 12.
6 by 6 is 12.
Yeah.
I knew that. 6 by 7 is 8.
It's 10. Nailed it.
6 by 7 is 10. That proves to you how often I shoot them, Mia. But I love the images that come out of this, and it's really great for weddings because it has autofocus. And there aren't many 645 or medium format cameras that have autofocus. It's usually like the Pentax 6.7 or you know the Mamiya 645 Classic, where you're looking down through it and you don't have that autofocus. So to be able to work quickly, you could even like shoot a couple coming down the aisle with this, which is really sweet. I have the 80mm 2.8 on here, and similarly, pretty much exclusively shoot Portra 400 and 800 in this camera on wedding days if I bring it. You might be wondering, that's a lot of gear, Eric. How do you bring it around with you? Well, I've been rocking the Pelican case, the 1510. Yeah, the 1510 for 8 or 9 years now. Same exact one. Need new inserts in it, but it's held up for that long, which is insane. One of the clips broke a little bit, but it can still clasp, and if that's not a testament to how well those are built, I don't know what else to say. Continue to use it. It's incredible. It rolls, so you can pull up the handle, roll it with you. So a lot of this secondary, tertiary stuff I will carry in the Pelican or just bring it there and then transfer it to my Clever sling. This is the Clever Supply camera sling, and so I can put lenses in here, I can put extra batteries in here and memory cards, and this will just sit on my hip along with my dual harness, which I'm getting to right here, and hack. JBL clip, Bluetooth speaker, killer for portraits, highly recommend. So that'll just sit here, and if I need to grab the tilt shift or the 135, or if I have my flash off, or I don't want to carry the Leica, or I brought the 645 and it's sitting there with a lens, there's so many ways I can utilize this shoulder bag, and it can just sit in the back there while I have my 2 cameras here. So I'll show you how I harness those. I've used 2 different straps throughout my career, currently still using the Clever Supply anchor harness. What's special about this one is that it has the Peak design integration. So it has these Peak quick releases where when it's mounted to the camera, I can just very quickly pop it off, and then the camera's off, and just clip it right back in and then it's locked back in, which is pretty insane. Clever really kind of made a name for themselves with doing leather goods and Peak Design integration with this proprietary clip, which so many people have. And so I will rock both cameras on this harness with those clips, and it's made with paracord, I believe it's called. It's like crazy military grade, like climbers use it. It's can carry a lot of weight, and I've never doubted it. And just sits right here, 2 cameras right there, incredible. So I could be hands-free to do things, pull either camera to my face, R5 with 50, R5C with 15 to 35. Leica might sit right here. So pretty incredible. If you are not interested in that design with Peak Design integration, I've also in the past used the Holdfast Moneymaker. This is from a company called Holdfast. Very similar product, just has the quick releases as pins here. So you pull the pin and the camera releases. I have had a couple issues with these in the past where you have to tighten the screws in the 1/4-20 thread in the bottom of the camera to make sure that they're tight all the time. Other than that, great piece of gear. Has these D-rings here where you can like put sunglasses, but it is a little squeaky. So just know that. But these camera harnesses will be the talk of the town at the reception. People will come up to you and talk to you about how cool they look and are. Way back when I made a video about lights, and I still use those halogen bulb lights, but they're completely discontinued only on the used market, and I don't recommend approaching those or using them anymore. Outside of speed lights or off-camera flash, I love using constant lights in photography. I'm a little crazy in that regard. That's okay. But being a hybrid photo wedding person, you know, there's a word for that, photographer. Being a wedding photographer and a wedding filmmaker, it's nice just to have one set of lights that I can use. A good replacement for the halogen bulb lights I use that are really comparable, really similar, recommendation from my studio mate Braxton, are the Nanlite Forza 60B Mark IIs. They go for $255 a piece on Amazon right now, and you can get a separate Fresnel. I think the Fresnel might come with it. And you could even adapt them to be V-mount instead of plugging them in the wall, and you could just rock a V-mount with that. If you want to make that battery grip adaptation, spend a little bit more money. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but that's the majority of it. This is what I've been rocking this year, what I'll continue to do. When it comes to elopements, I'm not caring so much about lights. I'm trying to pare it down quite a bit. So like I'm shooting one in Maine in a couple weeks. I'll be carrying the R5, R5C, Leica M6, and Cyrus, my employee, is coming with me. So he'll probably rock this in the shoulder bag with like my tilt shift. And that'll be my setup with my dual harness, and not overcomplicate it because it's just gonna be 2 people on an island. So if you have any questions about any of that, please leave them in the comments. Would love to discuss anything about any of this gear with you guys. I hope it was entertaining, informative, and give it a like if you like it. And I'll see you on the internet soon. Goodbye. Oh, also, earplugs. Bring them for receptions so you don't lose your hearing. Bands and DJs are loud, so wear them. You're welcome. Okay, goodbye.